Greetings to you, our listeners here at Stock Explorers, and welcome. We're doing a deep dive today, focusing squarely on BioCryst Pharmaceuticals.
Mm-hmm. BioCryst, yeah, they're a biotech company, really zeroed in on rare diseases. They use this structure-guided drug design approach.
Right, quite sophisticated stuff. And their main product right now, the one really making waves, is ORLADEYO.
That's Birchelstat, yeah. It's actually the first oral once-a-day treatment designed to prevent attacks in hereditary angioedema, or HAE.
A really significant step for patients with that condition. So that's our starting point today, ORLADEYO's recent performance.
And from there, we'll look at the broader business, recent highlights that potential investors like you might want to know about.
Exactly. And hey, if you find this kind of analysis useful, please do subscribe, maybe give us a like, and hit that notification bell so you won't miss our future explorations.
Definitely helps us keep doing these deep dives.
Okay, let's get into it. ORLADEYO's performance, particularly Q1 of 2025. It seems like something significant happened there.
Oh, definitely. The Q1 revenue for ORLADEYO alone was $134.2 million. That's up 51% year over year. Pretty substantial.
51%. Wow. And the total company revenue?
That hit $145.5 million, so up almost 57% compared to Q1 last year. And importantly, both those numbers beat analyst expectations.
Okay, beating expectations is always good news. What was the main reason behind that really strong growth? Was it just tons of new patients?
Well, new patient demand was strong, yes, but the company really pointed to something else as the key driver. It was how quickly patients moved from their free drug programs onto paid therapy.
The conversion rate.
Exactly. It happened much faster than they'd anticipated, specifically during the prescription reauthorization process.
How much faster are we talking?
Get this, they said it took about 4 months to achieve what they originally thought might take, like 3 years.
4 months instead of 3 years. That's a huge difference.
It really is a massive acceleration.
So how did that impact the number or the percentage of patients actually paying for the drug?
Directly. By the end of Q1 2025, they reported that about 84% of patients were on paid ORLADEYO.
84%. And where was that before?
It was around 73.5% at the end of 2024. So big jump in just one quarter. And they're getting really close to their long-term goal, which is 85%.
And more paid patients obviously means higher revenue per patient.
Precisely. It directly boosts that metric.
Okay, so faster conversion is key. But you mentioned new patient demand was also strong.
Yeah, they said Q1 new prescriptions were actually higher than the quarterly average they saw throughout 2024, so still attracting new people to the therapy.
Interesting. Is there a shift happening in how HAE is treated?
Well, some market research they cited suggests a growing preference for oral preventative treatments like ORLADEYO. Something like 70% of U.S. patients surveyed in 2025 preferred oral options, up from 50% back in 2023.
So the market might be moving towards them anyway, and doctors are still keen.
Their data shows physician intent to prescribe remains strong, yes.
Where's most of this revenue coming from? Is it mostly a U.S. story?
The U.S. is definitely the powerhouse. It accounted for about 89.5% of ORLADEYO's global net revenue in Q1, but they did say international growth is continuing too.
Okay. And does BioCryst expect this higher rate of paid patients, this 84%, to stick around?
Yes, they do. They expect it to continue through 2025, which significantly improves the revenue outlook for the whole year and, beyond.
Which must make them feel better about their long-term goals for the drug. They had a big number in mind, didn't they?
They did, and they reaffirmed it. They're still targeting $1 billion in peak annual sales for ORLADEYO.
$1 billion? That's ambitious. Has this faster growth changed when they think they might hit that?
They didn't give a new specific date, but they did say this acceleration brings them closer to peak sales of $1 billion. You'd have to assume it shortens the timeline, which was previously thought to be around maybe 2029.
And probably makes the path to that billion more profitable, too.
Exactly. That faster conversion means more revenue sooner. Their confidence seems based on, sustained demand, doctor confidence, good real-world data, and their geographic expansion.
Okay, you mentioned real-world evidence, or RWE. Let's dig into that. What are they seeing outside of the controlled clinical trials?
Right, the RWE. It's been quite positive. Studies are showing that patients stick with ORLADEYO adherence and persistence are high, comparable even to the injectable HAE treatments.
That's interesting because you often think oral drugs might have adherence challenges, so it's holding up well.
Apparently so. And maybe more importantly for, say, payers and the healthcare system, they're seeing big drops in healthcare resource use.
Like hospital visits.
Exactly. Things like all-cause hospitalizations down 34%, outpatient and ER visits down 14%.
Okay, that's general usage. What about HAE HAE-specific visits.
Even better there. Angioedema-related hospitalizations dropped 52%, and related outpatients or visits fell 44%. And if you look just at visits specifically for HAE attacks, the reduction was 51% overall. Hospitalizations for attacks down 60%, outpatient are down 50%.
Those are pretty dramatic reductions.
They really are. It also showed a nearly 40% drop in the use of on-demand therapies given by healthcare professionals. It paints a picture of better disease control.
So the RWE seems to strongly back up the clinical trial data regarding attack reduction.
Yeah, consistently showing rapid, significant, and sustained drops in attack rates. And this is across different types of patients, regardless of prior therapy, how many attacks they used to have, disease severity.
Even across different biological markers.
Right. C1 inhibitor status didn't seem to matter. And often, the median attack rate in these studies gets down to 0, or very close to it.
Which must have a huge impact on patients' lives. Does the data show improvements in quality of life?
Yes. Both the clinical trial data and the RWE point towards improvements in patient-reported quality of life measures. Which makes sense. Fewer attacks, less worry.
Okay, so strong clinical story, strong RWE. Let's switch gears to the company's financial health. This ORLADEYO performance must be changing their trajectory.
Absolutely. It significantly accelerated their timeline to profitability. They now expect to achieve sustainable profitability and positive cash flow for the full year 2025.
Full year 2025, what was the previous expectation?
They were previously guiding towards sometime in 2026, so they pulled that forward by a whole year.
That's a major milestone to potentially hit a year early. What's driving that besides the ORLADEYO revenue?
Well, the revenue is the main thing, driven by that fast-paid conversion we talked about, but they also had a solid base, achieving a non-GAAP operating profit of about $63 million for all of 2024.
Non-GAAP, meaning excluding certain items for a clearer operational picture.
Correct. And they project that revenue growth will keep outpacing operating expense growth significantly over the next few years. Something like 20% UEGR for revenue versus 5% for OpEx.
But wait, didn't they actually increase their operating expense guidance for 2025?
They did, yes. Good catch. The guidance went up slightly to $440 to $450 million for the year, excluding stock compensation. It was $435 million before.
Why the increase if they're trying to reach profitability?
They framed it as investment, supporting the ORLADEYO commercial effort, especially international expansion, funding the pipeline, and also some variable costs tied directly to that higher revenue they now expect.
So, investing in growth. Makes sense, but something to watch, obviously. What about their debt? They had a fair bit, right?
They did. They made a move there in Q2 2025, prepaying $75 million of their debt with Pharmakon.
Oh, interesting. Does that save them much interest?
They estimate it'll save around $23.5 billion in interest payments over the life of that loan.
Right.
Their Q1 interest expense was $23.5 million, down just a bit from $24.5 million the year before.
And their cash position, how much do they have on hand?
As of the end of March 2025, cash, equivalents, restricted cash, and investments totaled about $317.3 million.
Okay. And the bottom line for Q1, earnings per share.
That was another surprise. EPS came in at $0, basically break even. Analysts were expecting a loss.
Break even already. How does that compare to last year?
Big improvement. Net income was just $32,000, but compare that to a $35.4 million loss in Q1 2024. Driven by that strong ORLADEYO revenue and also lower R&D spend in the quarter.
Right, lower R&D. So ORLADEYO is clearly the engine right now. What else is cooking in their pipeline that investors should know about?
Yeah, beyond ORLADEYO, there are a few key things. First is a pediatric version of ORLADEYO itself.
For younger patients.
Exactly, ages 2 to 11. It's an oral granule formulation. They got positive interim data from the trial, APEX-PA, and actually submitted the NDA to the FDA back in Q1.
So that could be approved soon. What's the potential there?
It has the potential to be the first oral preventative option for that age group. The estimated U.S. market is maybe around 500 patients. Small numbers, but significant in rare disease terms.
An unmet need, definitely. What else?
They have BCX17725 for Netherton syndrome. That's a rare genetic skin disorder. It's a protein therapeutic in phase 1 trials now, aiming to replace a missing inhibitor.
Netherton syndrome.
Yeah.
What's the potential market size there?
Estimates range from maybe 1,600 to 5,000 patients in the U.S. Significant unmet need again. They expect initial clinical data sometime in 2025.
Okay, another rare disease focus. Anything else, Major?
There's a vorelstat for diabetic macular edema, DME. That affects the retina in diabetics. It's a different mechanism, a kallikrein inhibitor delivered via injection into the eye suprachoroidal injection.
Trying for less frequent dosing?
That's the goal, maybe every 3 to 6 months. It's in phase 1 in Australia, and they also expect initial data from DME patients in 2025.
So pediatric ORLADEYO, Netherton, DME, any programs they've stopped?
Yes, they did halt development of their factor D inhibitors. That was due to competitive data coming out from others in that space, plus some safety signals they saw in their own work.
A reminder that not everything makes it through development.
Absolutely. It's part of the risk in biotech. That decision probably tells you something about their risk assessment, when to cut losses if the landscape changes or issues arise.
Right. Shifting to leadership now, any recent changes there?
A couple notable ones. In May 2025, they added Steve Frank to their board of directors.
Steve Frank. What's his background?
Very relevant. He was formerly chairman of Global Healthcare Investment Banking at J.P. Morgan. Deep experience in finance, BD transactions, capital allocation.
Bringing that kind of expertise onto the board as they approach profitability. Interesting timing. Does that signal anything specific, maybe more M&A focus or capital strategy shifts?
It certainly suggests an enhanced focus on strategic financial management, maybe exploring more business development deals down the line. His background is tailor-made for that phase of a company's growth.
And any changes in the C-suite?
Yes. The CFO, Anthony Doyle, resigned in April 2025. The CEO, John Stonehouse, is serving as interim CFO while they search for a permanent replacement.
Okay, so a key financial role is in transition. How are Wall Street analysts looking at BioCryst right now? What's the general view?
Generally pretty positive. Ratings are mostly buys or equivalent, and analysts see significant upside potential in the stock price. Average price targets are hovering around, say, $15.40 to $15.80, roughly.
And what are they focusing on?
The key things are ORLADEYO revenue, obviously, the path to profitability, the pediatric expansion potential, and progress in the rest of the pipeline. Those Q1 results and the raised guidance were definitely seen as positive catalysts.
Is there a sense the stock might be undervalued?
Yes. There's a common sentiment among analysts that, based on the fundamentals and the growth prospects, BioCryst might be undervalued right now.
Okay, sounds positive, but we always need to talk about risks. What should potential investors keep in mind here?
Absolutely critical. The big one is the heavy reliance on ORLADEYO. Its continued success is paramount.
And competition.
Right. The HAE market is getting more competitive. Other treatments are out there in development. That's a constant pressure. The standard pipeline risks, clinical trials might fail, regulatory approvals might not come through. There's execution risk, too. Can they actually hit those profitability targets and manage expenses?
And the debt.
The debt burden is still substantial, even with the prepayment. That Pharmacon loan and the royalty financing need to be managed. And like many biotechs, there's always the potential for share dilution from stock compensation grants.
Okay, so lots to consider there. So wrapping up our deep dive on BioCryst, it seems we have a company with a strong lead product, ORLADEYO, that's really hitting its stride and pulling profitability forward.
That accelerated timeline is key.
Plus, a promising pipeline with the pediatric ORLADEYO and the Netherton program looking interesting, and maybe a renewed strategic focus on capital allocation with the new board member.
That sums it up well. It definitely makes BioCryst an interesting case study, particularly if you're looking at the rare disease space.
It certainly does. But as always, we need to stress this is our overview based on current information. We strongly encourage you, our listeners, to do your own thorough research and due diligence before making any investment decisions.
Absolutely essential.
Thank you for tuning into Stock Explorers for this look at BioCryst Pharmaceuticals. If you found value here, please do subscribe, like, and hit those notifications. We'll be back soon with another deep dive.